Thank you, Giancarlo. Thanks, Minister, for being here. I wanted to ask two separate issues. The first one just in relation to the events on Sunday, and then secondly I want to ask about the COVID ongoing issues. So if I could deal with the first one first, just Minister, you said in your own statement here that when on your outlines of your discussions with the Chief Medical Officer on Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning, you said, we discussed the current situation and the possibility of moving to level 4. And then, just in relation, looking at some of the stories that were released in relation to the whole thing, the Examiner published an article at 5:10 on Sunday saying that the country was on the verge of moving to level 4. And that was the only mention of level 4 at any stage during that, and that was at 5:10 on Sunday. So that's interesting, I think, in light of what you said here. And also then the Irish Times, published on Sunday, said it is understood that NPHET has met at noon and the meeting is ongoing. So that's obviously still while the meeting is ongoing. And one government source said, I think we are in a very difficult situation. So there seems to be something between the initial phone call that you had from NPHET, or from the Chief Medical Officer, and before the end of the NPHET meeting on Sunday, this seems to have been reported widely. And the Examiner talks about level 4, and you've talked about level 4 in your own statement. So it seems to me that the leaks came from somewhere within the government. And now you've said in your previous statement, or you said in response to a question earlier on, that it wasn't you or any of your staff. But I think you weren't asked about, did you talk to any journalists between the meeting, the phone call from the Chief Medical Officer, and 5 o'clock, and the ongoing reports then that started to appear in relation to it, and particularly where they mentioned level 4, and that seems to be the only time that it's been mentioned.
Thank you, Deputy. I can cut to the heart of your question and allegations. I can assure you that I did not talk to any journalists about moving to level 4. The events were quite clear. The events were, I contacted the Chief Medical Officer early on Sunday, said I'd like to talk before NPHET. He and I spoke. We had a very productive conversation. He talked about the escalating situation. The prospect of moving to level 4 was raised. And then we spoke after NPHET. NPHET met, I believe, at about noon. I don't know when they finished, but I can tell you that the Chief Medical Officer and Deputy Chief Medical Officer and Secretary General and I then had a call around 7 o'clock. That was the first time I heard about level 5. I noted that it was then reported on RTE, I think either on the 9 o'clock news or potentially somewhere ahead of the 9 o'clock news.
Reported in the Examiner at 5:10.
Okay. Okay. Deputy, like honestly, who knows? People leak. You and I have been in here, I think, together for the last 10 years, and we know that. All I can tell you is I wasn't leaking anything. I was focused very much on NPHET and on the situation and on what could happen, because regardless, you know, the recommendation was very serious. And even if we didn't go to level 5, going to level 3 is a really serious thing to do, you know, and it is a very difficult decision to make. And really, that's my sole focus.
The decision is difficult to make, and you know, I would agree with you that people leak. Only some people leak, not everybody does, and I think that's important as well, and in the whole context in relation to this. But it's important because it has become very important, actually, where the story leaked from and how it leaked from, because of the reaction of your colleagues and what your colleagues have said publicly in relation to it and stuff like that there, you know. So I think that's become important over time, and it wasn't my intention of coming in here today to actually discuss that, but when I see it here and I looked at it, then I wanted to raise a question in relation to it, because I do think that comes to the nux of it, and where the actual leak arose from, when you see between 12 o'clock and 5 o'clock on Sunday, is where it actually came from. So who knew then what was actually discussed is important, and it seems that the only person that isn't here that did know something about that then, Giancarlo, is the Taoiseach. And it's interesting that we were supposed to have this discussion tomorrow with the Taoiseach being there, and I had a suggestion, and now the Taoiseach isn't here tonight, so maybe there's something to that as well. Oh no, I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you to defend him, Cancorla. Like, don't worry about that. Like, so I'm not asking you to defend him.
That's not what I heard in the discussions, but maybe.
Well, the discussions we had today, the Minister has said that he discussed with the Taoiseach what had happened.
After 7 o'clock?
No, he said he discussed it before, when he got the call from the Chief Medical Officer.
My apologies.
He said, I contacted the Taoiseach afterwards. That's with the Chief Medical Officer. So the only two people in government that knew about this were the Minister and the Taoiseach and some of the officials. So, and therefore the leaks seem to have come from within government. So that's what I wanted to try and get to the bottom of. But Minister, if I could ask what, in relation just to, where are we? Oh yeah, you said that the government would like to see a more detail on options for the end of the 4-week period at level 5. Now, I actually would believe that we should have gone to level 5. And I think, by the way things are looking, is that we're probably going to go to level 5 in the next week or so anyway. And probably with the schools going off early for Halloween and that there and everything else along with that. Maybe that mightn't happen, but we'll see what happens anyway in relation to that. But I'm just interested, I wanted to tease out a wee bit about where you said that you would like to see more detailed options. What are your detailed options on staying and carrying on the way we are now? Because I was at a meeting last week where very prominent medical people outlined what happens in Africa and stuff like that in terms of virus outbreaks and stuff. So you get just peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs, ongoing. Now, and at the meeting they said this is going to be ongoing for at least 2 to 3 years from today. So we're looking at least for 2 to 3 years of this ongoing cycle of lockdowns, opening up, lockdown, opening up, lockdown. How is that good for our society? How is that good for businesses that are mentioned here by many speakers tonight? How can we sustain things ongoing into the future in that way? Now, maybe you have modelled it different and NEFIT have modelled it different and you think that this is going to actually break the back of it now. And if that's the case, I'd like to hear that as well, and I'd like to hear that discussed, because I think that's the crux of it. And I think if we actually went for a full lockdown now and close the whole thing down, we could get the numbers down, and then we could open everything back up by having proper testing, by having proper tackling the instances that would arise. But we have to do that on an all-island basis as well. I think that's very important. But I think those are the options, Minister, and I think that's what we should be talking about, and I'd just like to hear your views in relation to that.
Deputy Pringle, my apologies for interrupting you, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy, can I just say to the leak, you and I have worked together for many years, and you know I have the height of respect for you. I do think your comments about the Taoiseach are unfair. I know you're just wondering out loud,
you
Deputy,
said,
but I just want to respond to you and say I don't think that's fair. And can I just say, the gravity of your second question, which is the important question, thank you for asking it, because there's a lot of people asking questions about who texted who when, and who called who when, and why did something happen at 6 o'clock on a Saturday instead of 12 o'clock on a Sunday. Like, there was a very clear process over the weekend which led us to have to make a decision, and all that matters is the substance of your question. Level 3 versus level 5, what's going to happen? I've met the zero COVID folk. We've had very good conversations. There's some very good thinking there, and we all agree on the direction of travel, which is suppress this. They want to go further, and they have a view as to what can happen once we get there. The view of the public health officials that advise me is different to that, and the experiences that I'm seeing around Europe are different to that. And it's just worth noting, no country knows what the right answer to this is. This is new. But it is worth noting that other European countries are not pursuing a zero COVID strategy. None of them are. I'm just saying it's relevant that none of our colleagues.
Other European countries on an island.
Yeah, but we share a jurisdiction and we are an open country.
European country shares a jurisdiction on an island.
I'm just telling you what I'm trying to answer your question as to the why. Okay. With regard to what is going to happen now, what I hope happens now, the R0 is at 1.2, right? What I want to see happen now is a national effort to achieve across the country what the people of Kildare, Laois and Offaly nailed in August. If we get this R0 number below 1, the virus begins to go back, and we need to push it right back down. The reason we are staying at level 3 rather than going to level 5 is because when you consider the societal impacts, the health impacts, the economic impacts, and for me the economic impacts are related to future healthcare provision. It's not just about the economy. That was the best available. But could we end up at level 4? Could we end up at level 5? I mean, the fact that level 4 and level 5 are part of the framework answers that we could and other countries do. But we've got to do everything we can to avoid that in the coming weeks.
Now,